You're watching, learning, feeling. Will you stay with us? Just one click to subscribe means everything.
Hey, if you want to understand how our mind works, how we make our decisions, and how human psychology works, this book will greatly help you. You are listening to the summary of Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and... This book analyzes two modes of thought. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and emotional. System 2 is slower, more deliberative, and more logical. It examines emotional thought versus more logical thought and will literally change how you think. By understanding these thinking systems, you can become more aware of your biases and make better decisions. Here are some of the things that you can expect from the book. You will know how the human mind works. You will know how we have made our decisions and how we can improve them. How is human psychology done? What is the difference between the emotional and logical thinking systems of a human being? There are two systems when it comes to considering judgment and choice. The first system is about fast thinking. It is thinking done almost automatically or instinctively. Thinking is done with almost no effort from a person, and there is no feeling of control. This system of thinking is incredibly influential, more than you think, as it influences almost all our regular judgments and choices. Answering simple equations such as 2 plus 2 or knowing the second part of the phrase bread and is butter is due to the first system of thinking. System 1 executes skilled responses and generates skilled intuitions after adequate training. System 1 creates a coherent pattern of activated ideas in associative memory. It also links a sense of cognitive ease to illusions of truth, pleasant feelings, and reduced vigilance. The second system is a slow thinking system. The second system involves thinking that is more complex and more mentally draining. It takes concentration and agency for the person to process the thoughts. System 2 is easier to identify with. The conscious self, the version of you, makes decisions, makes choices, and has reason and beliefs. To monitor your behavior in certain situations or to increase your natural walking pace, you would be tapping into System 2. It may seem that System 2 is the dominant system, but System 1 is actually the hero here. Being such a rapid process, System 1 will inevitably run into problems from time to time, and in this situation, System 2 will step in for support. Sometimes the situation will call for more detailed processing than the System 1 can account for. When System 1 simply cannot provide an answer, System 2 will step up to the plate. System 2 is designed to monitor the thoughts and actions that System 1 promotes. Not only will it monitor these, but it will also control these by encouraging, suppressing, or modifying behaviors. The conscious and subconscious aspects of our mind compel us to generate related thoughts. For instance, when discussing food, our subconscious fills in associations with hunger and cravings, while discussing on cleanliness triggers thoughts of orderliness. Factors beyond our conscious awareness can influence our thinking process, subsequently impacting our behavior. For instance, individuals reading about elderly people unconsciously slow down their reading pace. Additionally, humor in jokes intensifies when prompted to smile, and when asked to feel sadness, disturbing images become more captivating. This functioning of our mind is a natural occurrence and not inherently problematic. Our thoughts and emotions align with our behavior. Not only can we observe these emotions in our actions, but we can also experience them while engaging in conversations with others. Consequently, our thinking is not solely based on objectivity and rationality. Many factors, which we may be unaware of, exert influence over our decisions, attitudes, and behavior. We like things that are easy to see, read, and understand. The things which are difficult to read, see, and understand, we find them false. The flip side is that something that looks good tends to look effortless. For example, people who do not like reading a novel find it difficult, while those who want it find it easy and pay more attention. Predictable illusions are such an approach by which we give the tag of right or wrong to any judgment. If that relates to your beliefs or comes from a source you trust and like, then you easily trust it. But why so? The things we know or have in our belief seem more accurate. For example, people often accept the words of our teachers or gurus of any religion as truth. This is because we have assumed that these people can never lie. We tell ourselves stories to make sense of the world. We relate events and situations to the story. The more these events fit into our stories, the more normal they seem. Things that go differently than expected to surprise us. We tell ourselves stories to fit those surprises into our world. We say, everything happens for a purpose, or God did it. We must build for the effects of connection from birth. We are built for the effects of connection from birth. Our brains are eager to know the agenda of what doesn't fit the pattern of causality. That's why we often like understanding people's personal targets and goals. This part concerns our tendency to cling to a specific belief while ignoring the facts. Jumping to a conclusion is correct when the decision is likely correct, and this jump saved more time and effort. It can be risky to jump to conclusions when unaware of the situation, because at that time the risk is high, and there is no time left to collect the necessary resources. In such a situation, System 1 fills our brains with automatic guesses and decisions about things that fit our stories. That's why, in this condition, we rarely consider other explanations. When System 1 makes a mistake, System 2 tells us to slow down and consider alternative explanations. System 1 is the native and supportive part of our decisions to believe, while System 2 pays more attention to fact. Judgments depend on the knowledge already present inside us, observes what is going on inside and outside the brain. That's why we often fail to make correct calculations about people and often trust untrusted things. It is related to matching, in which we automatically and subconsciously compare similar items. During this, we begin proving any decision right without any fact. In such a situation, remember the points while thinking slowly from System 2 to make the right decision. When faced with a complex problem, question, or decision, we make it easier by choosing an easier way. Instead of guessing a problematic fact or possibility, we consider other less complex tasks. Instead of grappling with the mind-boggling philosophical question, we find out what is happiness. We answer simple or easy questions that match the mood. Therefore, even though people who worry more often activate System 2 and make decisions very carefully, decisions related to emotion taken from System 1 often make us feel happier. It is also activated when we think carefully about something from System 2. We walk, eat, breathe, choose, believe, and sleep without fear or worry. This is because we replace complex problems with easy, everyday tasks. The lesson is to think carefully about difficult things and make them easy to do after deciding. When it comes to doubt, the systems differ. System 1 is not capable of experiencing doubt, whereas System 2 has the capacity to experience doubt. This is because System 2 often promotes two options simultaneously that are not compatible. The anchoring effect occurs when people consider a particular value for an unknown quantity before estimating that quantity. The estimates stay close to the number of people considered. Each system produces different anchoring effects, a deliberate process of adjusting System 2, and a priming effect, an automatic manifestation of System 1. The relationship between the two systems can be seen in the effects of random anchors. The study of anchoring effects has been based on judgment and choice, the characteristics of System 2. However, System 2's data derives from memory, the automation from System 1. Therefore, it becomes clear that System 2 actually doesn't have any control or knowledge of the effect. It also means that System 2 is more likely to buy into anchors' bias, encouraging some information to be accessed more easily than others. There is a difficulty in trying to avoid biases, but it also emphasizes the importance of doing so to remove the risk of mistakes. The ease with which instances come to mind in a System 1 heuristic, which is replaced by a focus on content when System 2 is more engaged. Multiple lines of evidence converge on the conclusion that people who let themselves be guided by System 1 are more strongly susceptible to availability biases than others in a state of higher vigilance. The concept of risk is a human invention. They designed it to assist them with the navigation of dangers, fears, and uncertainties. There are real dangers and uncertainties. However, concept of real risk or objective risk does not actually exist. System 1 and System 2 should be indicted when an incorrect intuitive judgment is made. System 1 suggested the incorrect intuition and System 2 endorsed it and expressed it in a judgment. System 2 is capable of failure, and this happens for two reasons: ignorance and laziness. System 1 is capable of making extreme predictions. System 1 is prone to using not a whole lot of evidence to make sometimes irrational predictions. He explains that this is due to the nature of the System 1 being more likely to jump to overconfident conclusions without enough evidence. When asked to estimate numbers like divorce frequency, pollution, or the number of deaths due to plane crashes, we quickly answer what we have experienced. It becomes easy to respond when we have a personal emotional experience. Someone who has been a robbery victim can better estimate the frequency of burglaries. Someone who has experienced reports of school shootings can better count the number of gun crimes, and someone who works at home has more homework experience. A person who has experienced a tragedy can better judge the risks and benefits. The person who has yet to share such danger will be less able to guess such things. When a friend has cancer, we get tested. When we don't know someone has cancer, we underestimate the risk. So the lesson is that it is wrong to minimize the frequency of an event based on ease rather than just statistical calculation. When there is a pile of news, our statistical senses start deteriorating. A recent plane crash tells us that air travel is more dangerous than car travel. After this, the more we fear air travel, the more excited the news anchors sensationalize the plane crash, which increase the fear. The more we see the fear of the thing, the more the fear grows in our minds. Therefore, before reacting to a small problem or news, consider whether it is positive or negative. Like profiling or stereotyping, representativeness is used to make decisions based on who we are like. In such a situation, we like it without looking at other factors. It relates to probability, likelihood, statistics, basic rate, or sampling sizes. In the author's baseline coaching career, scouts admitted players based on how similar their appearance was to other good players, because he believed that once players were recruited based on actual statistics, the game standard would improve. Even though we like a book cover design, we'll still enjoy the book. You cannot judge a book by its cover. Similarly, the possibility of running a lovely startup restaurant may be less, even if it is good to watch from the outside. Many well-run companies keep their outward-looking policies neat and clean, keeping the company decorative from the outside. But a well-kept lawn doesn't guarantee that the people inside are more excellent too. Therefore, we should make decisions based on facts to discipline our lazy minds. Think like a statistician, judging a person, place, or thing only by looking at its other factors based on how similar it is to something else can be the right decision. We can make accurate predictions when given the right kind of statistical data. But when statistical data and a personal story are told to explain things, we tend to pay more attention to the story than the data. We remember the story part better than the data, so try to relate the things you want to remember to the story. Narrative fallacies emerge as we persistently strive to make sense of the world. We constantly deceive ourselves by constructing fragile explanations of the past and accepting them as truth. The illusion we face is our inclination to believe that we truly comprehend the past. This belief, in turn, leads us to assume that we can predict the future. However, our understanding of the past is not as profound as we may think. The key to grasping and anticipating the future lies in modifying the language we employ when reflecting on our past beliefs. Language holds significant power as it shapes our perception of reality. Hence, it is crucial to utilize appropriate language when contemplating the past. Hindsight is the comprehension of a situation only after it has unfolded. Hindsight bias profoundly impacts how decision-makers evaluate choices. It causes observers to assess the quality of a decision not based on the soundness of the process, but rather on the outcome being favorable or unfavorable. Those who struggle the most with hindsight are individuals who hold positions as agents over others and decision-makers, such as doctors, financial advisors, social workers, or politicians. It becomes all too easy to shift blame away from ourselves and onto these decision-makers when their choices do not align with our expectations. Furthermore, we often fail to give them credit when their decisions yield positive results, assuming that they were simply performing their duties. According to System 1, the world should be a predictable and easily understandable place. However, this belief is merely an illusion. The illusion that we have fully comprehended the past perpetrates the further illusion that we can predict and control the future. This fallacy may seem obvious in hindsight, as one could not have foreseen the outcome in advance. Mistakes are inevitable when making assumptions and predictions. Nevertheless, according to Kahneman, we can learn from these mistakes. The first lesson is that the world is unpredictable and errors will inevitably occur. Secondly, we can learn that confidence should be viewed as a measure of accuracy. In fact, low confidence often yields greater truth. Optimistic individuals play a disproportionate role in shaping our lives. Their decisions have a significant impact as they are the innovators, entrepreneurs, and political and military leaders rather than average individuals. They have reached their position by seeking challenges and taking risks. At times, we possess unwavering self-confidence in the correctness of our opinions, predictions, and viewpoints. Some individuals hold steadfast to their ideas, even when faced with evidence to the contrary. Such individuals often make decisions based on intuition rather than logic. Confidence is a feeling that reflects access to information. Individuals with extensive knowledge and experience in their field often need to display higher confidence, even exaggerating their capabilities. Certain characteristics are often observed in such individuals, such as unwavering faith in their abilities, forming alliances with like-minded peers, emphasizing a track record of success, and disregarding failures. In such circumstances, it is important to maintain balance and evaluate cases based on reality rather than solely relying on confidence. We sometimes disregard statistical information and instead favor our gut feeling. However, gut feelings should not influence predictions regarding forecasting, stocks, diseases, car accidents, or weather. Gut feelings often prove to be incorrect. In such situations, we should rely on consultations, checklists, statistics, and factual records rather than subjective feelings. Avoiding reliance on gut feelings for more important decisions and refraining from overestimating one's status can prevent mistakes. Through awareness, we arrive at decisions more swiftly. Chess players understand how to play by observing the chessboard. Firefighters sense when a building is about to collapse. Art connoisseurs can identify a talented artist. Parents possess a sixth sense for detecting when their children are in danger. With practice, children become experts in video games, riders become skilled drivers through motorcycle riding, and chefs develop intuitive cooking abilities. The key to this phenomena is recognition. Alternatively, one may possess expert intuition or have engaged in extensive mental practice in a particular field, or they may have recently witnessed an incident that has left a lasting impression. When we relay a story we have heard to someone else, it becomes easily remembered. Effortless recall without interruption does not guarantee the accuracy of the beliefs we confidently hold. This often occurs due to the influence of experts. Experts operate within an environment where they have access to the necessary resources and support to address any issue. The expertise of an expert is honored over a significant period of practice. Rather than blindly trusting experts, it is important to understand the reality as well. Engaging in risky endeavors such as starting a business or operating a restaurant requires careful consideration. Seeking an outside perspective by consulting with others engaging in similar projects provides an external viewpoint. Failure to do so increases the likelihood of failure. Neglecting to estimate costs, set deadlines, and lacking interests are all indications of poor planning. Therefore, decisions should be based on reality rather than solely focusing on the probabilities of profit and loss. In other words, decision-making influenced solely by subjective feelings can result in unsuccessful planning. In such situations, we tend to favor facts that support our pre-existing knowledge while making assumptions about what we do not know. Ultimately, the outcome of our action lies in our hands to achieve the desired results. It is essential to recognize the illusion that often permeates our minds and avoid ignoring competition in our respective fields. In business and startups, individuals who make decisions based on gut feelings are often surpassed by more confident competitors who rely on data and statistics, while those relying on gut feelings merely make assumptions. The lesson to be learned is that a comprehensive approach that considers both the positive and negative aspects can mitigate risks. Decisions made solely from this perspective can often prove to be incorrect. The majority of people don't enjoy risk and avoid it whenever possible. In most cases, when offered two options, one being a gamble with a value much higher than expected, and one is a sure thing of expected value, most people will pick the sure thing. It is because we crave the security of knowing the outcome and avoiding the risk. In some cases, if a sure thing is offered with less than expected value, some decision makers will take this as the option, determined to avoid any potential risk. People who face very bad options take desperate gambles, accepting a high probability of making things worse in exchange for a small hope of avoiding a large loss. Risk-taking of this kind often turns manageable failures into disasters. Many of the options we face in life are mixed. There is a risk of loss and an opportunity for gain, and we must decide whether to accept the gamble or reject it. Loss aversion is the motive to avoid losses as stronger than the motive to achieve gain. To use money as an example, we are likely to be motivated more not to lose money than we would be to make money. This is why many people don't set high-achieving goals. By setting a goal you never reach, you are making a loss. By exceeding the goal, you are achieving a gain. He explains that in many cases, people will reduce their efforts once they have reached a specific goal because they see no point in going above and beyond. It's not about gains, it's about avoiding the loss. Defeat is never easy to accept. This is why wars go on so long, despite the losing side knowing that they have no chance. They'll often persist, holding on to the smallest bit of hope that they can avoid defeat. When outlining a new plan, the obvious outcome we all imagine is success. However, failure is more likely, as there is usually one plan for success, but multiple ways things can go wrong. Regret is not only an emotion, but also a punishment. We often prescribe ourselves with regret when something goes wrong, and for this reason, a fear of regret is a motivation behind many decisions we make. We avoid making decisions that may lead to regret and often miss out on opportunities. Again, decision makers are the most affected by regret. They know that regret is more likely in their lives, and they often live in anticipation of it. It gives the emotion of regret power, and it has a significant role in all decisions. We often think that something has only objective value. $1 million is a lot of money for everyone, but it's not like that. It would be excellent for a poor person to have $1 million portfolio. At the same time, a billionaire with a $1 million portfolio would be considered poverty. However, the amount is the same. One gains, the other loses. Similarly, the psychological state of a person plays a vital role regarding risk, value, anxiety, or happiness. We confidently make decisions about our psychological conditions without checking all the facts. Once you accept a principle and use it as a tool in your thinking, it is difficult to notice its flaws. If you encounter an observation that doesn't fit your model, you assume that there must be an excellent explanation you've somehow missed. You are unable to accept that your principles were wrong. When we compare a typical result with a high impact, we go towards a high development because with the same amount of hard work, we will get high mark, or on the other hand, with the same amount of work, we will get a typical result. For example, by buying a lottery ticket, there is a high outcome of winning money instead of hard work to earn money. In such a situation, the probability of results, which are almost sure to give fewer results, is given less importance. This means that people associate the values of gains and losses and look at different probabilities of outcomes rather than just money. The pattern of preferences is responsible for this. 1. When the result is enormous, such as a lottery ticket, the buyer realizes his chances of winning are minimal. They can only succeed with the lottery ticket, but at least dream of it. That's why they buy. 2. This explains why people buy insurance. We pay for insurance to buy protection and peace of mind. 2. This explains why people take desperate gambles. Those facing a significant loss just look at the gambling as an opportunity for a slight glimmer of hope to avoid it. But often, these risks make their conditions worse than before. It makes more sense to focus on things that are more likely to happen, such as rain tomorrow or financial needs, than things that are less likely to happen, such as terrorist attacks, disease, floods, and landslides. Most people are so afraid to take risks that they avoid all kinds of risky activities. But the author says this is wrong, because some chances, which may seem like gambling, are in our favor, and not taking them can make you lose money. In general, one way to avoid risk is to consider how much you can benefit from that risk. Thinking small, looking at short-term losses, and not taking risks for long-term gains can keep you poor. In such a situation, people often become victims of hopeless mirage. The author says that people want to do a lot in life, but when it comes to taking risks, they back down and cut short their dreams, which is incorrect. Not all chances are wrong for us. If you are taking risks for your business or job, then it is only for your benefit. The System 1 calculator influences many people, which scores not only the potential financial gains and losses of the transaction, but also the emotional risks, rewards, and possible regrets of our financial advice. We are often ready to sell money-making stocks because it makes us feel like intelligent investors, and we are less inclined to sell stocks that are losing money because it gives us the feeling of defeat. It is irrational because we would make more money by selling the losers and sticking with the winners, because at this time, our mind is keeping score of our emotional status, which does not want to make us feel defeated. To minimize our losses and avoid feeling wrong about being called a failure, we often put good money behind bad investments and stick with the investment to avoid the things of the world, long in disrespectful marriages, long live and stay in a career you don't like. It is not good to keep it in for too long. We have all an experiencing self and a remembering self. The experiencing self often comes before our remembering self. That is, you can already experience the fun of 13 days of vacation. But if things go wrong on the 14th day, you will remember that vacation as a negative vacation. Our memory overrides our experiences. How an experience ends holds more weight in our memory than how the moment we lived. For example, what we did last after coming from a mountain trip is remembered for a long time. Similarly, our mind can capture the end moments better. It is more important than how friendly and lovely an experience was, how memorable it was. It is easy to assume that we make all our decisions with our best interests at heart. However, this is simply not the case. Making a decision is not necessarily considering our preferences despite basing them on experience. This issue is that memories significantly influence our decisions and preferences, and memories are not always right. Even short-term memory is limited. A memory from only 15 minutes ago can be remembered differently, impacting your decision-making. The author uses an example of a failed marriage to explain the memory issue. When looking back at a failed marriage, you're likely to have only negative thoughts, considering the painful divorce process and the last few months potentially tense and miserable. You fail to remember the years and years of happiness and love you enjoyed. Just because it ended on a bad note doesn't mean that the whole experience was terrible. But unfortunately, we are predisposed to remember the bad parts, which are then taken forward to help make future decisions. A single happiness value does not easily represent the experience of a moment or an episode. There are many variants of positive feelings, including love and joy. Negative emotions also come in many varieties, including anger and loneliness. Positive and negative emotions are capable of coexisting and being present at the same time. We'll associate a memory or moment with a feeling of either positivity or negativity. The mood is never consistent. Many factors can influence someone's mood, indicating temperament and overall happiness. Moods and emotional well-being can change many times over a day or week. The current situation that an individual is facing has a significant impact on mood. We cannot hold a concept of well-being that ignores what people want. On the other hand, it is also true that a concept of well-being that ignores how people feel as they live and focuses. On the other hand, it is also true that a concept of well-being that ignores how people feel as they live and focuses on how they feel when they think about their life is also untenable. We must accept the complexities of a hybrid view in which the well-being of both selves is considered. Let us now repeat the important lessons once so that it is easy to remember. The first system can be considered fast thinking. It is thinking done almost automatically or instinctively. The second system is slow thinking. It involves thinking that is more complex and more mentally draining. It takes concentration and agency for the person to process the thoughts. We often rely on System 1, but System 2 is implemented with more rational thought and conscious decision-making when that fails us. System 2 is better suited to problem-solving and intense analysis. System 1 is not capable of experiencing doubt, whereas System 2 has the capability of experience, whereas System 2 has the capacity to experience doubt. System 1 is predispositioned to jumping to conclusions with limited evidence. System 1 is predisposed to jumping to conclusions with limited evidence. System 1 is also likely to make predictions and assumptions about the future without assessing the evidence. We are more likely to do anything we can to avoid risk than we are motivated to make gains. We assume that we know everything about our past and can predict what the future might hold. However, we know less about the past than we think. Memories influence decisions, but memories can be misleading or wrong. Our thoughts and feelings are the same if we behave in specific ways. You will not be able to see these emotions in your behavior, but you will also be able to feel them while talking to someone. The more we see the fear of the thing, the more the fear of it grows in our minds. Therefore, before reacting to a small problem or news, consider whether it is positive or negative. Think like a statistician, judging a person, place, or thing only by looking at its other factors based on how similar it is to something else can be the right decision. We can make accurate predictions when given the right kind of statistical data. But when statistical data and a personal story are told to explain things, we tend to pay more attention to the story than the data. We remember the story part better than the data. So try to relate the things you want to remember to the story. Before a point of view about something, it is necessary to see why it is like that, which is not being shown. Before a point of view about something, it is necessary to see why it is like that, which is not being shown. Instead of unthinkingly trusting people, understand the reality as well. So this was the summary of the book Thinking Fast and Slow, where author Daniel Kahneman explains two systems of the brain, how we are aware of how our mind works, how we make our decisions, and how human psychology works. Born in Israel, Daniel Kahneman grew up in France before returning to Palestine. After studying psychology and receiving his bachelor's, Kahneman was enlisted in the Israeli Defense Force, working primarily in the psychology department. Kahneman later moved to America to complete his PhD in psychology and has since earned a Nobel Prize for his work on psychology and economics.
You're watching, learning, feeling. Will you stay with us? Just one click to subscribe means everything.
If your journey feels stuck, you're not alone. We've got you. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps more curious minds discover this content. Subscribe to Being and Beyond and join a growing community that thrives on knowledge, perspective, and personal growth. And if this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Your support fuels our passion and pushes us to create better content. Welcome to Being and Beyond.